Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Just before we get into this week's podcast, I'd like to take a second to say two things. Number one, thanks for tuning in once again. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for every listen, every download, every watch. Secondly, if you can take time to subscribe to wherever you listen to or watch us, it would be greatly appreciated, and it would do a lot for us and the show. Thanks. Enjoy this week's episode. Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Happy New Year. I am Ben Canning.
Happy New Year. This is Dave Kennedy.
And this is Hacking Your Health podcast.
It is.
What's up, dude?
Dude, it's not technically a brand new year.
I know we have to
podcast. We have to
play like speak in the future. When
Happy
you're
New
listening
Year, everybody.
to
Man,
this,
this party was great. You know, the New Year party was great. Christmas was great. You know,
future us will be saying
we had a great Christmas and a great New Year, and it's time to kick some ass going into 2023. Right? That's our goal.
Yes, exactly that. I mean, for the real time frame, we only recorded the last one yesterday. So between yesterday and today, what's been going on?
Well, so my Orange theories were a little bit delayed. So for those that are just tuning in for the first of the year for the first time, welcome. By the way, welcome to the Hacking Your Health family. But I do HIIT training, so high intensity interval training at a place called Orange Theory, and I do that twice a week, and I lift 5 days a week. It's kind of my routine currently. And so I normally go Mondays and Wednesdays, but my back was a little tight on Mondays, so decided to push Orange Theory off a day. So I went Tuesdays, and today is Thursday, so I went Thursday. And I've been getting over a cold, and so I really haven't felt 100%. And today I went to Orange Theory, and so I'll tell you the funny story about it. So for those that haven't listened to the podcast before, I'm somewhat competitive with other people, but you're not supposed to be at Orange Theory, so it's not a competition.
And nobody else knows.
And nobody else knows it's a competition except for me. But it helps like get me into a zone to push myself harder. And I told myself today, like, hey, I'm just kind of getting over sickness. I'm just getting over, some back pain, or some back tightness and soreness. So I'm just going to take it easy today. Well, there was this girl that was 2 next to me. And I know she competes with me because she'll look at my screen. And one time she actually said to me, she's like, man, I was trying to beat you, but you definitely got it. So I know she always tries to beat me.
You're like, me? No, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I didn't even know. Oh, I noticed because I kept hitting the number up, right? So today she was 2 next to me, and I caught her looking at my screen, which is, showing how fast, and I saw her bump her speed up 0.5. And I was like, shit. I'm like, now I gotta compete here, and now I gotta go out. And I'll tell you, I don't know, a switch flipped to me that hadn't been in there for a while, and I went on an absolute tear. I completely killed myself. I mean, it was so bad that like after I got done with the treadmill, like, and I of course won by like 0.5 miles, which is great. And then then I went to we had a block that was weight training and rowing. So you had to do like 2 power movements, and then you had to go to the rower and do like 200 meter row, 150 meter row, 100 meter row, but going back and forth basically. So it was like kind of like a circuit. And I was basically almost crawling to the rower because I was killing myself so much. And normally they have what are called splat points, and it's so you have different zones. You have like like a gray zone, which is like you're barely doing anything cardio. You have a green zone, which is like, hey, you're in your good range of cardio. And then you have like an orange zone, which is like, hey, you're starting to kill yourself. And then red zone's like, hey, you're practically dying. And I was in the red zone like the majority of the time. And so splat points are orange and red. Normally I get like 10 to 12, and I got like 34 today. So it was a tough day. I'm covered in sweat right now. Luckily, no one in the audience can smell me because I just reek of just sweat and destruction of my body. So, but it was a good workout, and I still got to do back today later on this afternoon. So I'm going to give myself. I just eat a banana. I'm about to have my protein shake right here and start to recover a bit, and then lift in the evening. Because there's no way a lift is happening anytime soon. How are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I mean, you look great. Yeah, I'm doing good. Nothing really else to report here. I am on a non training day today, which actually feels
so next day.
Yeah. No, I'm actually going to train legs tomorrow. Trying to plan my days around getting a disco pump for Christmas. I'm gonna train my legs tomorrow, so I'm gonna take a non training day today. My day's a bit upside down, but no complaints. Check-in day for everybody, so we can go through that. It's cool to see because I'm seeing so it's like your check-in day essentially, but it's also the day that all the Hacks crew put their check-ins in, and they always put there's like a channel on a separate channel on their Discord for weekly wins, and they're like whenever they're going to check in, they put the weekly wins in. So it's a rewarding day cool. to see the wins come through and what people, and even like what different people celebrate and what different people see as wins. So yeah, it's definitely cool. It's definitely a very rewarding day. So that's what's going on with me.
That's awesome. It's cool to see the success of all those folks. And, again, relatively new to the process, right? I mean, it's only been going on for about, a month or two?
This will be week 6.
So about a month and a half, yeah. Yeah, that's awesome to see people's progress. I mean, you have folks that have already dropped like 20 pounds and things like that. I mean, just crazy success with everything. So it's really awesome to see the energy, and the camaraderie of one another, kind of upholding and uplifting one another. So great community there, and it's awesome to see that.
I think one of the cool things is, and this was not planned, like full disclosure by any stretch of imagination, but I think the timing of everything worked out quite well because after 2 weeks, we all dealt with Thanksgiving together. Well, they all dealt with Thanksgiving together. And then now it's coming into Christmas. Because everybody sort of dealt with that, whenever I was on the call with them on Monday, I was like, right, what's the plan? Like, how are you going to navigate your calories? What's the plan for Christmas? And everybody was cool. Like, nobody was freaking out. Nobody was like, oh, I'm going to go off the rails, or like, there was no predicted shit shows. It was like, yeah, I have this party and then I have food with the family, but I'm going to control my calories and I'll be in control of it. And ultimately, whenever you have that control or that understanding of what you do and don't need to do, that's when you don't fall on and off essentially the bandwagon. So it's cool to see, again, even so early on, that they have that knowledge to know what they need to do to handle it so that they're confident going into the holidays and not like freaking out that they're going to go off rails, because naturally it is a time where people do tend to go off the rails because it's just massive amounts of food everywhere. So it's cool to see that too.
Yeah, and that discipline carries forward, throughout your whole life, and as you're in this health journey. For those that are just tuning in for the new of the year, the foundational principles that you learn around kind of eating moderately, eating within your own range of calories throughout the day becomes a really important aspect of your life. Like a good example is I went to the Cleveland Cavaliers game yesterday, and I have access to a lounge that has unlimited food, and they have cakes and desserts and all this other stuff, and just tons of piles of food. So for me, they had yesterday was like gyros and wings, and a ton of like breads and pastas and mashed potatoes and stuff like that. So I literally got a gyro with no bun. I just kind of threw the steak meat on there, or the lamb meat on there, and some veggies. Then I had some wings, and that was my dinner. And I calculated that within my macros, and stayed within line with everything that I was doing. And, didn't get any desserts because, I could have, but I decided, hey, it's not really worth it. And, stuck within that kind of moderate type of eating, even though there was a lot of access to food for me. So, those principles that they are learning, will stick with them forever. And it's funny because it's almost like an autopilot for me. When I go at Christmas, I'm not like looking for, the craziest, highest calorie type of food out there. I'm looking like, hey, let me get my protein first. The majority of my plate's going to be protein. And the rest of it, I may supplement with some like beans and maybe a piece of bread or something like that, or some, stuffing. But, the stuffing isn't going to be, 3/4 of my plate with a couple pieces of turkey. It's going to be predominantly turkey, some gravy on there, and, a little bit of stuffing, a little bit of other stuff. Definitely some cranberry sauce, because you have to have cranberry sauce on turkey. That's a must. People will die on that hill there. But it's one of those things where, you kind of learn those principles. And even if you're not tracking calories or things like that, you're still getting heavy, whole foods, protein rich type of meal in a situation where you're enjoying food with family.
Yeah, I actually think, I sort of broke it down. I was like, if you think about the basics of a Christmas dinner, like essentially it is a pretty decent, well-rounded meal. Like you can get a pretty decent amount of protein. You can have decent veggies, carbohydrate source, and some fat source. Like it just has become over the years an excuse to completely take the piss and overeat, but you don't necessarily need to. Obviously you can if you want to calculate it through your week and include whatever you need to include, but it is a pretty well balanced meal. It's been home cooked, so I don't see the reason to overconsume on days like that.
Yeah, and the over-consuming piece of it is the interesting part because, it took me, it's hard to explain, but like prior to me having a framework or a system in place for me to be able to eat, right? I wouldn't think about portion size. I wouldn't think about what I'm eating. I would just eat until I totally full to my, top of my food, and I'm, super tired afterwards, feel like total crap, then maybe eat some more later, then have some more desserts. And then, it was this thing where, it was just a bottomless pit that you continue to eat. But when you are doing stuff like this, you're like, well, hey, I can go over calories a little bit here, but it's not going to be 1,000 calories. It's not going to be 10,000 calories. It's going to be, 500 or 600 calories. It's going to be predominantly protein or something like that. And, protein digests very differently, much harder to store from a fat perspective. So you're doing the right things to kind of do that. You're not engorging yourself in just a ton of food to do it for doing its sake. So, being mindful of those types of things eventually creates these habits that, it's just second nature to when you actually go and do it. And it takes time to get there. And it takes time to be mindful of it. And it takes time to kind of get into that autopilot mode of that. But once you get to there, it's much easier to do that than it is to actually like just eat an ass ton of food to where you're completely, feeling like crap and, you hate yourself because you gain, 15 pounds a day, which isn't possible, by the way. You have a lot of food built up in your system, but those are the types of things that you can be mindful of during these, during the holiday timeframes, and then kicking back into, first year, obviously, when this is released.
Yeah, I think the one thing to remember, and maybe it's a bit backwards talking about it now, but I talked about it on the call on Monday. It's like, people are concerned when their weight starts to go up, and I'm like, right. So say, for example, you're stood beside me right now, and I put you on the scale, and you weigh whatever you weigh, and then I hand you a plate of food, and you're holding it. The scale is going to say that you weigh more because you're holding a plate of food. So essentially, when you eat the food is inside of you, so you will weigh more. So yes, okay, you may see fluctuations in your weight, and it will come up. But just know that you haven't actually physically put on that amount of weight in terms of actual body fat or some sort of tissue.
And that's, when you start to eat differently too, at first you will gain some weight typically because, so let's just say, most of your calories are coming from, highly, processed, calorie rich, carbohydrates or fats or things like that. Your body is used to digesting them fairly easily. They are digested. So if you eat like a Pop-Tart, for example, are you full after a Pop-Tart? No. Like you could literally eat 50 Pop-Tarts and it'd be like 2,000 calories. And then you could eat a ton more after that as well. So it's not a fulfilling meal when you eat things like that. But when you eat something like a piece of lean meat, like a steak or a burger, are you usually full after that? Yeah, because it's very dense or very, thick food that you're eating, whole foods. It fills you up quicker, and it gives you that source of protein. Those types of foods take a while for your body to digest. So when you start switching to more of like predominantly whole foods, like 80% whole foods, 20%, whatever, those whole foods will stay in your system much longer. So when I first started with Ben, I'm like, hey, Ben, I don't think this is going the right way. It's like been 1 week and I'm up 8 pounds. And you're like, give it like a couple more days. And all of a sudden it's just like, boom, okay, those 8 pounds are gone. And then I started dropping, right? So it just takes some time for that food to get out of your system and for your body to get more used to digesting some more complex types of foods for you to actually go with. So don't freak out if you start switching and you're like, oh, I start shooting up a little bit. Now, if it starts happening for like 2 or 3 weeks, that's when you start to say, hey, I'm probably eating too many calories. I need to start dropping things down. But at the end of the day, you will start to see a little bit of a weight gain as you start to go through this.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say this is backed by science, but if you think about processed food versus whole foods, like processed foods are already processed, so they've already done the majority of the work. So your body doesn't need to do as much work to process and digest them. Versus whole foods, it literally needs to break them down. So it'll have to go through the whole system of breaking them down. So that's why it will keep you fuller for longer. It will stay in your system for longer, and it will, it will take longer to actually go through the system.
Yeah, and that took me a little bit of time to learn when I first started going through all this. Is like, hey, I'm eating all this food. It takes a while to digest. And I usually, when I weigh myself, a lot of people make the mistake of like weighing midday or towards the evening when you've already eaten all those foods. To me, the best time to weigh yourself is, first thing in the morning, maybe after a bowel movement or something like that. If you're regular in that side, started to talk about, all of that. But, it's a good time, after that, where you got the food out of your system, you're kind of looking at your natural weight. And then from there, you kind of build off of that and do like more daily measurements and then take the average of that throughout the week. So, for me, weight is just a number, but it's one measurement of many that you can use as a tool to be successful with what you're doing.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So today we're going to revisit and sort of start again because it's the start of the year. So no better time to do it. Is that correct? Are we on the same page?
That's correct. We're gonna go and recap some of the foundational principles of being successful going into 2023. And these principles, are true in and true out. They work for everybody because they're flexible to everybody. And when I say it works for everybody, it doesn't mean that you have to do this, that, and then you're going to be successful. It means that there are principles that you can apply to what you do day in and day out, and starting off small to be successful in your journey through health and fitness. And, where you may have failed many times before, we've all failed many times before. And we come back and we learn, we try to iterate through that and become better going into the new year. And so this podcast is really dedicated to those folks that are just starting off, that are just listening to us, that are, maybe at a stall point or need some help and motivation. The principles that allow us to be successful in our journeys through health and fitness, and ultimately our lives feeling better about ourselves, being able to, do things with our kids and our families, having more energy through our work and through our family life. All those things are possible as we age, as we grow older, and there's never a bad time to start this journey, regardless if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. You can absolutely make a change in your life that starts to catapult you towards success. And if you think about it, if you're doing absolutely nothing now, you're at a zero, right? If you just start doing small things, and let's just say you're doing 1% more than you did yesterday, that 1% eventually adds up to, a lot more from a bettering yourself perspective throughout the whole year. And these small things are what makes a big difference in somebody's life. If you're, just starting off and all you're going to do is do 8,000 steps a day, or 8,000 steps every couple of days, you're decreasing your mortality rate by like 60%. You're increasing your body's ability to recover itself and to, move around and fix ailments and things of that effect. And you're burning calories as you're going through and doing it. So small changes equate to big differences in your life as you start to go through. And it could be anything from walking or just working out once or twice a week. Those things will have resonating impacts on you, how you feel as you start to go through this.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest points, again, to sort of touch on the Dr. Adia podcast that we were listening to during the week, one of the things that he says in it, the biggest benefit or the biggest jump in benefit you get is from whenever you go from zero to like that sort of second group up. So it's like, I think he talks in like 20%. So from the bottom 20% to the next 20% up, like that is where you get the most benefits. As you start to go up, you get less percentage gain in terms of benefits. So if you're starting at nothing to go up to that next, 20%, you'll get the most benefit from training, managing your nutrition, your cardio, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And when you start looking at what we have to do to kind of frame this out as starting off the new year, Ben has, several principles that are kind of the pillars around health and fitness and your journey as you go along. And it's funny because when I first started off with Ben, and many folks that listened to this podcast before will relate to this story. I've talked about it a few times, but I had no idea if Ben knew what he was talking about or not. And I assumed he did, and I was hoping he did because, obviously, I was investing my time and my dedication into this. But it's funny because, a year later, or a year and a half later, or different times, periods that I've known Ben, the validation of Ben's program and even the science behind it and the validation through like PhDs that study, neurobiology and, how our bodies work validates, what Ben has been saying for a long time, and really well thought out, structure. In fact, it was interesting. I was listening to Huberman yesterday. It was the Q&A session. In fact, I think you were at this one. It was the New York Q&A session. And one of the questions that came up was, I think, around hypnosis or something like that. But he had talked about how there were studies on mindset. And if somebody told you, it gave you a negative video on how stress increases your heart rate and increases, your body's inability to repair itself and is a horrible thing for you, your body will actually mimic the negativity in that video. Okay. and it will actually like start to like have higher blood pressure and things to that effect just from interpreting what stress does to your body. So a negative perception of stress in your body causes your body to have stress and to have negative impacts. However, if you frame a video in a positive light and say, well, listen, short-term stress isn't a bad thing for your body. Your body's designed to handle stress, just not copious amounts of stress every single day that just beats you down. And it goes through the positives of stress. You will actually reap the benefits of the positive stress because it's told in a different way. It's amazing what our minds can do just to go one way in a pendulum or another way. And what Huberman was explaining is how we interpret the real world or social media or how we interpret things in our lives ultimately equate to how our bodies react and how healthy we are and everything that affects. Our mind is literally the catalyst for everything that happens in our bodies, whether or not we're motivated to go to the gym, whether we're motivated to eat nutritionally, healthy, dense, foods, whether we're, continuously trying to better ourselves or how we handle stress. One thing about me that I've done very well throughout my life is I still get stressed and I have stress in my life, but I don't allow stress to control me. If I'm just having a really, crappy day, I will, have a crappy day, but I don't let that ruin my life. I just have to go through it and I have positives and things like that. I look at the bright side of things. And, if I have confrontation or things like that, yeah, it stresses me out, but it doesn't get me to the point to where it's like something where it just puts me in a hole. So having a mindset on controlling your body, controlling your stress, and controlling more of a positive outlook can be really important to frame yourself to be successful in this journey. And so you look at what Huberman was talking about, obviously nutrition, resistance training or muscle mass, cardiovascular health, all of those are extremely important. But the most important piece for all of those to be successful is having the right mindset to buy into that.
Yeah. I mean, for anybody who hasn't heard me tell a story, like whenever I first started coaching and the BC training logo literally used to read body, nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset. And I can't remember how many years it was into coaching. I was like, that is the wrong way around. Like that is not the way around that it goes. And it just shows that, I guess, either the immaturity from when I started or the maturity as I sort of grew as a coach. And now it reads mindset, lifestyle, nutrition, body. So the exact opposite way around. And it's funny, I guess this will sort of lead me into what I was going to say. What you're saying there about the two separate videos of stress is essentially a perspective that you have on the video or a perspective that the video conveys.
Wait, say that again. Sorry.
Sorry, I was getting a notification that I had a low battery. I can get a charger on. It talks about the perspective. Hold on, let me plug this in.
If you're not listening or not seeing this in the video, Ben's headset is dying because he didn't charge it. How do you not charge your headset? Like I just plug it in all the time.
I thought I had it plugged in. Don't worry, I can cut this bit out. Nobody will even know. I don't know if I'm going to have any distance on it. Anyway, there we go. Yes, so essentially what you were saying was the Andrew Huberman was basically showing two separate videos, and it was the perspective that you had around stress. And essentially, I think that the biggest thing with that is the perspective piece of it. And I guess, thinking about the mindset, lifestyle, nutrition, body, again, it's a perspective thing. And one thing that I always think that I do well, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, is I always offer good perspective whenever people are struggling with something or people are, oh, this has gone wrong or this is this or that's that. I always try and give a different perspective of things. I think that that's something, and it's oftentimes something that is overlooked, is just having a different perspective on things.
One of the things that I always appreciated with your programs, there was days where I was struggling, with not having enough fast change or areas that I would just kind of fall off on, whether it was eating too much food or, having a total crap day, from a workout perspective, just not feeling like I was, 100% into it. And the positivity, the reinforcement, I think was such an important part. And, we've talked about tribes before in the past, but humans were never designed, at least historically, we may evolve into this, but humans were never designed to be in large cities and things like that. We'd have small communities, usually consisting of, 50 to 100 people. And those were our tribes. And each person, would provide a valuable skill to that tribe, whether it was, going out and foraging food or planting or water or those different things to make that tribe successful. And that's what made us so strong from an evolutionary perspective, is that, we're not the fastest, we're not the strongest, but when we come together in a tribe, we're extremely strong. A bear can't take down a tribe of 100 people. So the contribution aspect of things and providing for your tribe is an extremely important part of our evolutionary track. And so, when you have positivity from a same tribe or a similar tribe with same beliefs, our minds almost instantly attach to it. And that's what you kind of see today in social media and politics and things to that effect. You find somebody with a similar belief and you latch on to those similar beliefs, and then it becomes empirical with that tribe. So you have to agree with that tribe or, go specifically to that tribe. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just how we are evolutionary wise. And same thing goes for health and fitness. If you find, folks that have the same mindset as you for your own success, or for you to be, healthy in those, and you get kudos and you're contributing to motivating other people, very similar to what we have here in Hacking Your Health podcast, the energy that we get from our community motivates us to continue to do this, to share knowledge, to push ourselves harder, to be kind of a face of what we're doing here. So the tribal aspects around fitness is just as important as and it equates into the mindset aspects, because without that, you don't have the ability to have that motivation that we've had for, hundreds of thousands, millions of years of evolution, to allow us to get that same type of tribe aspect. So that's why it's important when you're trying to be successful in this journey, to have supportive people around you that are motivating you in a positive way, not a negative way. And we all get in negative spins, whether it's, hey, I'm not losing this weight fast enough, or hey, I don't like how my body looks, or hey, I wasn't able to PR this day because, it was totally crap. Those days where people can uplift you will help push you through that and to overcome those hurdles and your battles with yourself.
Yeah, and it comes down to, the saying about you're the product of people you surround yourself with. Like, it's okay, we're not physically surrounding ourselves with, but obviously we have the benefits of, we can do it virtually or within the internet. And I think that one of the biggest things that I've seen, and actually probably one of the biggest reasons that I actually launched the Hacks program as a group-based program, was me sort of seeing the benefit that everybody within the BC fam had being in a group. And I've said this time and time again, like, I physically can't be a group of people by myself, and I can't offer what they offer. And it's not essentially something that I can sell as part of the package, essentially. But like being in that environment, and whether it is that you come in and you share the shit stuff, the good stuff, the wins, the losses, like whatever the fuck's going on, and being able to share it, it's having a space to come and share it, and having people that, A, aren't going to judge you, and B, will sort of give you what they think you need in that moment. So whether it's support, whether it's someone to listen to, whether it's, good job, bad job, whatever it might be. And I think, having that space and having that environment is definitely something that is a massive part of people's success, beyond like anything that I could do myself.
Yeah. And so when you get the mindset aspects down, there's different pillars as part of it. So mindset is, hey, I want to make a change. So apply yourself to that. And one of the tools that I have always used to be successful in this is that, and this has gone for not just fitness, but business, bourbon, like different hobbies I've done throughout my life that, and the bourbon wasn't a problem, by the way. I just like collecting bourbon. So, different things that I've done throughout my life that I've been successful at are things that I've made my hobby, or that I kind of immersed myself into. So for me, when I got into this fitness journey, I started researching data. I started, reading books. I started trying to understand, listening to podcasts, obviously listening to what Ben had to say, and from there kind of growing my knowledge in this field, so that I could make the best plan and motivate myself to push myself further along as I went through. And so, the making this your hobby, I think is important. Making this something that you do. And again, it doesn't have to be like all consuming in your life, where you're going from, not going to the gym to going to the gym 6 days a week for 15 hours a day. That's not going to be successful, right? But getting yourself, inching your way into it, and starting to have that mindset of, I'm interested in this, I want to figure this out. And for me, it was kind of a natural evolution, because I'm very much into hacking. I love hacking systems. I love, breaking into computer systems. This was just a flip of, hey, how do I hack my body? how do I use science that's out today to hack my body to do something that I haven't been able to do before, to figure something out that I haven't been able to do before. Very similar to how I break into computer systems. So that mind switch for me was very much the same as it was in hacking. It was figuring out how my body works, getting my blood work done, taking my blood work and trying to figure out, hey, what is LDL and HDLs? What does this mean? And what does that mean? What does my testosterone levels look like? What should they be at? How do I optimize, my body to be the maximum amount of performance that could possibly be in my life and be successful with longevity and health and everything else that goes along with it? What do latest studies say? What's the newest breaking research? Like, all those things are the exact same stuff that you do in cybersecurity every single day. Why can't I do that same thing for my body? So the mindset pieces and applying it, to making your hobby is something that is a lot of fun. And I've really enjoyed that journey. But once you get past the mindset piece, now it's time to start actually doing some sort of incremental changes, right? And I think this is where you start getting into the nutritional aspects of things. Someone might be like, hey, you need to work out first. No, I would argue get your nutrition locked down, because we've talked about this before in the podcast, but at the end of the day, regardless of what diet you're using or what pills you're using, we don't recommend pills or anything like that. Your body is you eat calories, you consume calories, or you burn calories. You eat calories, you consume calories, you burn calories. So it's calories in versus calories out. Now there's nuances to that and some ins and outs, but at the end of the day, if you eat more than your body can actually use, then it's going to be stored as fat. Plain and simple. There's no other explanation for it. It's how our bodies work. It's thermodynamics. Our bodies heat itself up and uses itself to cool itself down. As that's happening, there's a lot of processes happening, like ATP and a bunch of other stuff, energy production in our bodies. The more energy we consume, if we eat less than we consume, then you're going to lose weight. Same thing for muscle building. If you do resistance training and you eat enough protein, you're not going to lose you're not going to lose your muscles, right? You have enough amino acids for protein synthesis, and you will continue to build muscle. So there are things that you can start to do nutritionally. So here's the thing. People are like, well, how do I lose weight? I'm like, caloric deficit. Eat less food. You can literally drop 50 pounds by eating less food. You don't have to work out. You don't do anything different right now. It's literally eating less food. Now, again, we don't recommend it. You want to augment that. But everybody's like, hey, you need to go do cardio first. No, that's not what you need to do. If you do cardio, the problem with that is if you're not locked into nutrition and you're doing cardio, you're going to want to eat more, and then you overconsume, and now you eat more calories than you actually partake in. You're like, why am I not losing weight? I'm running my ass off, and I'm still gaining weight. It's because you're eating more, because your body wants more. It's used to that figure. So getting down to nutrition, I think, is once you have that mindset in place, starting to lock in what you eat and how much you eat is extremely important. That's why we recommend, calorie trackers and macro breakdowns. And we'll get into that in a second, but I'll pause it and give it over to Ben to kind of add some more context there.
Yeah, I think as we said time and time again, like, it's actually just having an understanding of what you're putting into your body is probably the biggest piece, because there is this like, okay, right, I have to do cardio or I have to do whatever because I want to lose weight, which, yes, cool, okay, fair enough. But if you're not in tune with what you're consuming, how your body responds to it, how you feel and stuff like that, then it's completely useless. And it literally 99.9% of the time, it's just a balancing act by how much food you put into your system versus how much energy you burn in whatever activities you're doing day to day. So definitely having an understanding of the nutrition piece. And as we sort of said, even last week, like even just the act of tracking your food will give you two things. Number one, an understanding of calories and how food is made up. But number two, it will in some way tidy up or quote unquote clean up the food that you do eat, because you actually have the information in front of you and you have the data, you have a goal, and you have like, okay, well, the best analogy for this is like a money analogy. So if you have, $2,000 to spend every single day, you want to spend it in the right way, not going over it, not trying to go under it. You want to spend it in the most efficient way. And that's the same with your calories. If you've got 2,000 calories to spend each day, you want to do it in the most efficient way. So having an understanding of how food is made up, having an understanding of where you can get the most value in terms of the calories and what you put in your system, how you can sort of get the most meals out of it, essentially. And the only way that you will get that is from actually tracking the calories and having the information.
Yeah, and the tracking and nutritional aspects of things is so important because it gives you a baseline of what you're eating. So a good start is like download something like MyFitnessPal or some of the other calorie trackers that are out there, and start to add what you're doing, to be able to track your macronutrients. And macronutrients are broken up into 3 different areas: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Proteins, are going to be what you need to have adequate amounts of in order to ensure that you maintain and build muscle mass, especially if you're in a caloric deficit. If you're not getting enough protein, you're going to start to shed muscle as you start to go through this process. So if you're dropping, more than 2 or 3 pounds a week, you're typically going to be burning muscle mass as part of that as a byproduct. So you usually want to stay within the 1 to 2 pound a week range, getting enough protein, which will ensure that it kind of pads the muscle loss side of the house and you continue to kind of build muscle mass. It is possible to build muscle mass in a caloric deficit as long as you're doing that appropriately, and then supplementing that with how your body reacts, whether that's fats or carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are not bad. Carbohydrates got a bad stipulation because of all the processed crap that we put in our bodies. But, complex carbohydrates, fruits, vegetables, all of those are amazing for you to go and eat. So, don't think carbohydrates are bad. Carbohydrates, create explosive energy for us in our bodies, and our bodies are designed to handle carbohydrates for energy production. Now, yes, if you don't use all those carbohydrates up, it converts into fats. But think of fats as a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you eat 1 gram of fat and you don't burn 1 gram of fat, 1 gram of fat goes to, your body to store for calories for later on. So, it's 100% conversion ratio for fats that you eat. So if you're doing a high fat diet, and you don't consume all that, it's going 100% to that. Whereas carbohydrates have, I think it's like a 20 or 30% conversion rate. So, you're burning calories with those carbohydrates. It's not 1-to-1. Protein's more like 70 to 80% conversion rate. So, you're burning much more calories, much harder to store fat directly from protein conversion to fats. So there's a lot of different nuances to it. But at the end of the day, get your protein in first as much as possible, which is 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. It doesn't mean your total volume of body fat or body mass. It's lean body mass, and how you calculate that can be somewhat challenging, but usually use a percentile of your overall weight. For me, I'm at 230 currently, and I want to get, I usually try to get around 200 grams of protein per day, or 210 grams of protein per day. But that varies based on the person on what you're doing. But those macronutrients end up being really important. And then basically taking that and saying, well, how much energy do I produce per day, which is what we call our total daily energy expenditure. And there are some calculators on there. If you go to the WeHack.health website, there's a macro calculator there that will break down, your age, whether you're male, female, whether you, how active you are. And then from there, it'll give you a baseline of what your total daily energy expenditure is and what calories you should be eating if you want to lose 1 pound or 2 or gain, based on your objectives per week. And then from there, you just basically take those calories, eat those calories, track those calories in, MyFitnessPal or those types of things, and start to see how many calories you're producing. And if you're not losing that weight, start to drop those calories down a few hundred, 200, et cetera, to where you get the desired state. But one thing you have to realize is that don't drop your calories too far down, or else you'll start to stick with that weight, and your body's basically going to go into hibernation mode where you're basically not burning much energy at all. Your total daily energy expenditure is going to be totally low, and it's not going to be a good measurement of what you can do. So, try to stay just a few hundred calories off of that total daily energy expenditure and only drop 100 to 200 calories down, maximum per week to get to that 1 to 2 pound, baseline of weight loss as you're going through this.
Yeah, and I think the calorie thing and the deficit, there's 2 sort of sides to the coin. And I think number one, recognizing sort of where you're at. For me, I have a pretty decent understanding of what I can tolerate. So I know that eat a cookie.
It's a Cliff Bar. It's kind of like a cookie.
Calories.
Cliff Bar. It's a Cliff Bar. It's an energy bar.
Okay.
It's got protein in there.
So I have a pretty decent understanding of what my body can tolerate, or what I can tolerate. And for me, like, I can push quite hard into a deficit for a short amount of time. And the only reason I know that is from time to time again, going through it. But sort of what I try and recommend, or what I try and at least start clients with, is a slightly smaller deficit and do it for a slightly longer period of time. And there's a very fine line in creating too much of a deficit that everything becomes difficult. Like, standing here will be difficult. Doing your cardio, you'll be doing it half-assed. You don't want to go to the gym, so your sessions are half-assed, versus creating like a slightly smaller deficit, and you can still go in, enjoy your sessions, as you said, gain muscle, get stronger, whatever it is, and actually I guess, enjoy the workout you're doing and not just go through the motions with it, and probably in a roundabout way actually burn more calories because you have more energy going through those sessions. So trying to find that out initially is an important one. And, again, it's person dependent. As I said, I know I can do quite a severe deficit for a short amount of time, not for a long amount of time. And I would rather, I'm the person who would rather get in than get out, and sort of get it done. So definitely having that. But again, it comes back to just having an understanding and going through it to know, okay, right, this is what works for me and this is how I can deal and process things.
Yeah, and once you get those foundations down and starting to eat, again, 80% whole food. So whole foods being defined as something that has like 1 to 2, ingredients in it. So like, lean meats, veggies, fruits, those types of things, whole grain, type of
something that's either been alive or grown on the ground is probably the way that I would say it. Something that's been alive, single source, being alive or growing in the ground would be a whole food to me.
Yep. So, those types of things can make you fuller for longer, help you hit your protein goals. So you obviously can supplement with like things like protein shakes and things like that. But, trying to get your whole foods as kind of a main thing is an important piece there. Now, once you have that, the next question is, well, now we need to get into some sort of routine, right? And whether that's, just being active in some way, shape, or form. So getting steps in. The magic number seems to be 8,000, although people say 10,000. Anything above 8,000 is great. So 8,000 and above is awesome for your body from a cardiovascular perspective, blood moving perspective. And so if you can just be active and mobile to get 8,000 steps a day, it substantially reduces your rate of cardiovascular death, cancer, a bunch of other things, just because you're moving your body around and you're starting to put it under some sort of stress, albeit extremely low stress from that side, right? So there's different things you can do. Now, everybody's like, well, cardio is the best thing for you. I would argue that maintaining muscle mass is probably one of the best things that you can do for you. And there's some longevity studies on that. I think you have some stats here from the Dr. Attia podcast too.
Yes,
but
I have listened to this 8 times in a row and I've written it down so that I don't fuck it up. But please forgive me if I do. So essentially, they talk about things that increase risk of mortality. They talk about type 2 diabetes, increase your risk by 30%. Smoking increases your risk by 50%. Being weak versus being strong increases your risk of mortality by 250%. And having a low VO2 max versus having a high VO2 max, so like cardiovascular health, increases your risk by 400%. Like, that is a phenomenal statistic. Like, that blew me away. That genuinely, I'm like, so, 2 of the biggest killers, essentially, smoking and diabetes, 30 and 50%, and then being weak versus being strong, 250%, low VO2 max versus high VO2 max, 400%. That is insane.
Crazy. And it just goes to show you how our bodies are designed to operate, right? The more we put our bodies under physical stress, the longer we live, the more we're able to overcome things in our lives, the better we feel about ourselves, the more healthy we are, because we're enacting how our DNA is designed to do. I mean, when we're out foraging food for our tribes, that gives us purpose. That gives us what our bodies were designed to do, to hunt, to be under stress, to, forage for our things, to build houses and villages and things of that effect. Again, going back to that tribalism in our years of evolutionary track, our bodies are enacted through stress across our bodies, through resistance training, through lifting heavy things, through being able to run, short or long distances, to do high intensity type of activity for periods of time. Our body DNA is literally activated by those specific things. So, whenever we can do that, it's only helping ourselves live longer. It's only helping ourselves become stronger. It's only helping ourselves mental clarity and positivity and all of these other side benefits, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, but, the reason why I'd gone to Ben initially was, I had a lot of success dropping the weight, but I started gaining that weight back again. And I started also experiencing other things like brain fog, and energy levels were just at a total tank, and I just didn't feel motivated. I just felt tired all the time. I didn't want to do activities with my kids. I was just in a bad state. And I can honestly say, I'm 40 years old right now. I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my entire life. I have the most energy I've had in my entire life. I feel the best I've ever had in my entire life. All of those things were possible due to the things that I put in place, most specifically around my cardiovascular health and my ability to do resistance training and put my body under stress. And I do think that a lot of people in the weight training side neglect cardiovascular, health as well. I mean, you were one of them.
Guilty of that. I was guilty of that. Yeah. I mean, I still wouldn't say that I enjoy cardio, but I definitely have made a spot in my days and weeks for it for sure. But I definitely did avoid it probably for too long. But again, I mean, stats like that make me go, right, maybe I need to be doing a bit more. Like maybe I need, maybe there's more that I need to do if I want to, essentially if we're looking at how we can live for as long as possible, like, that is a staggering statistic.
It is. And, so for me, the combination of high intensity interval training, i.e. cardiovascular health, and my ability to stay strong with resistance training has been a really great balance between the two. And, it's interesting because you're always balancing, your objectives and goals. So for me, I want to continue to put on muscle mass. I want to continue to get larger and stronger. I want to continue to challenge myself. The more muscle mass I have on, perhaps I'm never going to be, a massive bodybuilder, but at the end of the day, the more muscle mass I have going into my 50s, 60s, and 70s, the longer I'm going to live. And there's a lot of stats against that. Bone density and lean body mass literally equate to longer lifespans, especially as we age. So the more that I can keep that,
but even with that, like they talked about that in the Dark Data podcast, is like the statistic of people, like elderly people who fall and break a bone or whatever, and go into the hospital and never come out. But not even from a bone density perspective, but even having the ability either A, to balance and catch yourself, or B, have something that's a little bit more cushion, like, and as in more muscle mass, so that you don't actually have those breaks and have those injuries. So like, not just from a not falling and breaking your bone, like the other pieces that come just from carrying a little bit more muscle. And it'll be interesting to see, like, sorry to cut you off, but it'll be interesting to see, like, obviously, training and weightlifting and whatever else has become more popular over the past 10 years and whatever else. So it'll be interesting to see, in 30, 40 years, whenever everybody now is like, quote unquote, elderly, and how different things will be. And if it does actually have the impact that we're talking about. Yeah.
It was funny. I was listening to one of the podcasts. I think it was.
People are going to think you just listen to fucking podcasts all the time.
I think it was Dr. Rachel Patterson, I think. Anyways, it was a while ago, but this one blew my mind from a statistics perspective. And they said that the single best source that they have currently today to measure how long you're going to live. Can you imagine? Do you know what that is? The single best source to determine how long you're going to live. It's gonna freak most of the people out. You're like, there's no way that is a baseline for how long you're going to live, because you would think almost instantly, be like, well, it's probably LDL or HDL cholesterol levels. It's probably blood work that specifically shows these specific indicators.
Is it 1 rep max bench press?
Just deadlift. No, it's grip strength.
Oh yeah.
Grip strength directly equates to how long you're going to live. And it's to all those points that you actually said around your ability to catch yourself or not fall, the fragility that you have as you get older equates to how long you're going to live. So if you have really good grip strength, you're going to live a long time based on all the studies that they can show. So grip strength, by far, statistically, in large data set studies, has the largest impact to determining whether or not you're going to live longer or not, which I thought was like mind blowing. I'm like, really? Grip strength? Out of all the data and science that we have, it's grip strength? Like, that's the best we got? I'm like, there isn't like a magic like enzyme that our body produces or something like that, but no, it's grip strength. So
I have a pretty good grip strength, so I think I must be okay, or I might be okay.
Yeah, I think so too. And what's great with when I was training with you is, you'd always emphasize grip strength. So, I've been able to build up some really intense grip strength. So even when I'm doing, 600-pound deadlifts or whatever, I'm still using natural grips when they're not like being completely ripped off from the kabuki bar like last week. But I got a callus shaver now. Excuse me, nice. I can't do it yet because I have like literally open wounds on my. Yeah, I got a new bar, it's a kabuki bar, and it's known as being like the destroyer of hands. It's got like really like pins basically that you're going into, and I wasn't even paying attention. I did a deadlift and it ripped off all my calluses, bleeding everywhere. It was bad. It was bad.
That is.
Anyways,
rough.
Yeah. So talking about getting into a routine, the resistance aspects of things is really important. I would emphasize that as number one. Start to build muscle mass. And it doesn't mean you need to do 5 days a week. If you could just do 2 full body exercises,
250%. That is insane. Being 250%. That is insane.
Let's do it. Right? Let's do it. So 2 full body exercises, once a week is amazingly beneficial for your body. And if you look at some of like the pro bodybuilders and the people out there, I mean, a lot of them only lift 3 days a week. That's their routine. And that's perfectly ample for them to be able to build muscle mass, to, hit those abilities for your mTOR production, for muscle and protein synthesis. All of those things are happening just by lifting and putting your body under some sort of duress or stress. So 2 times a week, full body exercises, obviously you can't skip legs day. Legs day is extremely important. Just know getting into this, that your calves will never grow ever. But everything else will start to grow over time. But, get into a routine around that. There's some great programs out there that you can go and find online to get you into some of those. Start off small, start off lightweight, master the form of that exercise so that you don't injure yourself, and start to build yourself up weight-wise as you start to go along. But, getting into some sort of, routine around resistance training, getting your steps in is a really great starting point for all of this.
Yeah, I think it is start slowly and build up over time, because I realize there is the eager beaver in us all that just wants to do everything straight away. And, I've had plenty of calls over the past couple of weeks of people, and essentially the thing that I always focus on is like where they're at now, what their lifestyle looks like, and what's realistic for them. Because one of the biggest things that puts people off starting something is every failure that they've had in the past. So whether it's a diet that they've failed at, or whether it's a different trainer that they failed at. And the last thing that I would want anybody to do is go into a new training, or go into a new year, or move into a new program, or start working with me, or whatever it is, and set themselves up for failure, because everybody's busy. Not everybody has the time to, train 5 or 6 times a week and do endless amounts of cardio and whatever it is. Then it's just a case of, okay, right, what can you actually commit to that's realistic, that you can stick to, that I know from experience that we will build on over time. But it is that just find the start point and actually start to do something. And when you start to do something, you have that feel good factor, you have more energy, everything becomes that little bit easier, more manageable. And then you have more and more time to sort of invest in yourself and the weight resistance trainer or cardio or whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that, making time is important, but knowing that time will somehow free itself when you start to become more important, when this becomes more of a priority. And, you always get the things, well, my family doesn't eat healthy. How do I do that? These things come over time. If you start to eat healthy, your family will start to kind of reciprocate that and do the same thing. At least most will. Like my family, when I started eating healthy, they all started doing the same thing. So kind of went along that whole journey. And
but the thing about that, for me, like what I think in that is, just because your family don't eat healthy doesn't mean it's an excuse for you not to. And for me, it's, I want to set an example. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, right, I'm not just going to fall into the, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to eat like an asshole because everybody else in the house is eating like an asshole. It's like, no, this is going to make me feel better. This is going to allow me to live longer. Like, this is the way that we should eat. And it is about taking control and leading by example in it.
And it's also important to note too, that because you're living this new lifestyle, doesn't mean you still can't enjoy food. If you listen to our previous podcast that we just released last week, it's really important to enjoy food and things like that. So if you're having some pizza, fine, build it into your macros for that day of what you can eat, but just don't eat like an asshole. Don't eat, 15, slices of pizza. Only have a couple of them. Have some self-control over yourself of what you're actually going and doing. So, it doesn't mean that you have to, be on a spinach diet for the rest of your life. Eat what you want to do within moderation. I still can enjoy as much food as I want to. I can eat junk food. I can eat, whatever I need to, but it's within moderation. And, if I do have days where, we go over, like one day when Ben was in town, we went to the Cheesecake Factory, and I'm pretty sure my calories were probably at the 4,000 mark,
I think we add our calories in that one slice of cheesecake for the day.
That one slice of cheesecake was like over 1,000 calories. And it's funny because like Dr. Lane on that show said, like, I don't understand how the Cheesecake Factory has so much calories in those types of things. He's like, I don't know how it's possible. Like, it's just, you have this like small slice of cheesecake. It's 1,000 calories, right? So you could still have days like that, but is it every day? Absolutely not, right? So it's just the balance of things in your life and eating responsibly and understanding that you're going to have days that you might go overboard, or you might have days where you didn't, follow yourself. If you listen to last week's podcast, there was 2 days, and Ben's going to yell at me in my check-in for this, where I was like, I went on a tear of wheat thins. Wheat thins are my crux, and I just ate a whole box of wheat thins, and I went over my calories by like 600 calories. And I owned that day, and I wear my head in shame on it. I know I fucked up, but at the end of the day, I'm going to go back to it. And, and today I'm hitting the ground. Yesterday I hit it fine. You go back to the routines that are good as you go through this. So it's not to say that you can't be flexible. You're not going to have days where you jack up. But at the end of the day, you put mindset in place, you put nutrition in place, you put, some sort of resistance training and steps in place. All of these things will start to build upon your success and your knowledge in health to give you a framework that will be successful. And, again, there's so many diets out there, so many fads. Don't worry about supplements. You don't need supplements. If you're going to do any type of supplements, the only thing I would say is like protein powder and creatine are probably the two biggest things you can do from a supplementation perspective. Stay small and grow big as you start to go through this and learn more about your body. And then, as your habits change, as your routines change, as you find more time to prioritize for yourself, because in one of the biggest things that I hear most of the time from people getting into this is that I feel guilty that I'm taking time away from my family to go and do something for myself. And here's the thing, you're not just doing it for yourself. The story I always tell about my health journey was I had a doctor that came to me and said, listen, if you don't change your patterns of behavior, you're not going to be around for your kids, because I was having heart surgery at that time because I was obese. And I was already having the impacts of what that has to do to my cardiovascular health and everything else. So I had heart surgery. And the doctor said to me, we're able to fix this, but if you don't change your lifestyle, sorry for my dogs, if you don't change your lifestyle, you're not going to be around for your kids. And to me, that was a rude awakening, saying, I'm being selfish for not investing in myself to better myself, to get better for myself, for my kids, and for my family. And I can tell you that my energy levels, how happy I am with my kids, how I interact with my family and my kids, all of those things are a byproduct of me living this healthy lifestyle. And it's also rubbed off on them. They're all focusing on healthiness and getting out there and being active and being in sports and all those other things. It's amazing. Yeah.
And I think, again, that comes right back to the perspective conversation. Essentially the perspective on people feeling guilty that they are being selfish and they're taking time away from their family to go and do something for themselves, quote unquote. The reality of it is they're being selfish if they continue to live the lifestyle that they do, because essentially they'll not be around for the family for as long as they potentially could be. So it's having the perspective on that will sort of give you not the excuse, but the reason to go and get it done. And I think that's often, it's seen, or it can be seen as selfish, but if you sort of zoom out and look at it the opposite way around, if you don't take control and you don't start doing these things, it can be seen as selfish, that, you're potentially not going to be A, setting the example that you could be, and B, as round as long as you possibly can.
Yep. And at the end of the day, if we're bettering ourselves, we're making ourselves happier, we're making ourselves healthier, we're doing that for our families and our friends as well too. And, that time that you take, and it was funny because, and we'll wrap things up here because I got a call here very shortly. But, I remember my wife, when I first started this health journey, she's like, don't tell me this is another one of your new hobbies again. Because I was starting to, I'm like, no, it's just going to be a thing. But, after a while she understood, like, this is a great thing for you. It's a great thing for us. I'm going to start doing this. I enjoy this. Let's get involved in this together. So, it became more of a bonding experience for both of us. In our journey with our kids as well. So, the healthier lifestyle led to a much happier lifestyle, for all of us, because we're all kind of doing the same things and working together. Doesn't mean it's going to happen across the board, but again, the time you invest in yourself is going to, and for yourself is extremely important. So, focus on yourself, start off small, grow big. That will be success for 2023. Make that promise to yourself. Make a promise to yourself right now that you're going to start tracking calories today and be able to track those calories throughout. It takes 15 seconds, 30 seconds, to be able to input in calories. It's going to take, the first week is going to be a little awkward, a little bit painful. And once you get used to the system, UI, scanning barcodes, all that other stuff, it starts to become easy. Just see what you do from a day-to-day basics of how much calories you're actually putting in your body, and start small and grow big. So the small things equate to big things of success down the road.
Yeah. The small things are the big things.
Small things are the big things. Well, everybody, I want to thank everybody that has listened to this podcast through and throughout. Again, this is a recap episode for folks that are just joining. If you're just listening to us for the first year and just starting off on this journey, you can do it. It isn't magic. It's not genetics. Yes, we all have different genetics. And yes, some of us burn more calories than others, and there's different variations, and some of us have ailments and disabilities. But at the end of the day, the framework that that you can put in yourself around understanding how much calories you're eating versus how much calories you're spending and what you're doing to improve yourself, those things will be proven successful throughout the year, and you can do it. Trust me. It's just a matter of, for me, making your hobby, making it fun. And the last thing I want to hit on before we get off of this real quick is that when you first start off with resistance training, your body will fight it. It's a proven thing. Your body fights new things because it's used to the same old. It's hard for us to change as human beings. But as you start to do this more of a routine, a few months later, you will start to enjoy resistance training. Your body will start to want more resistance training. Your body will start to enjoy it as you start to go through these exercises and the recovery aspects of things. So, power through the first few months of it sucking in, like I'm dreading ass going to the gym. It does get better. Trust me. Your body will start to learn saying, hey, this is something I want to do.
Yeah, agree. Thanks for listening.
Well, 2023, make it a successful one. Happy New Year. And appreciate everybody tuning in. Follow us on We Hack Health on Twitter, social media, Instagram, everything else. Check out our Discord, discord.gg/We Hack Health. And then also the
I made you an emoji last night. You're now officially an emoji on the Discord.
Oh, sweet. You made it when you're an emoji, so it's awesome. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Catch you all next week.
Bye.